Hi everybody, this is Joe Protocol here again, back for my second tutorial, and in this video I want to cover the topic of sidechain. Now sidechain, if you're not aware of what it is quite a simple technique where you use the signal of one track to trigger a kind of ducking effect on a second track. This is most prominent, you would hear this most prominently in EDM, where a kick drum would really heavily duck a kind of synth line and you get this kind of pumping motion on an EDM synth line. But for me, I use it way more subtly, just to allow different elements at similar frequency ranges to kind of not compete with one another, and to choose certain elements to cut through, mostly from the drum. So yeah, let's start with the first example. And the first example is using a kick drum to trigger the sub bass, because they sit at very similar frequency ranges, and also the kick and sub are really loud elements in the mix. You kind of need the two to sit well together, so I will use the kick drum to trigger the sub bass, so that it ducks when the kick drum comes in. So let's hear this example here of a track I'm working on, the whole track of course. Okay, so let's hear the kick and the sub together. So the plugin I'm using here is a plugin called Trackspacer by Wavesfactory. Now this isn't so much of a sidechain compressor, it's more of a sidechain reverse EQ. So where a compressor will act on the whole signal based on the total level of the channel, this one will create like a kind of reverse EQ, and then when the sidechain triggers, you can choose which frequency range on the channel which the Trackspacer is on for the kick to kind of act on. So let's go into a bit more detail about how this plugin works. So the blue line, is the incoming signal. So that's the sidechain, that's the kick in this example. And the white line below is what is being kind of created from this reverse EQ. So very simply, you have an amount control here, which is the amount that the sidechain signal acts on the sub bass in this example. And you have a low cut and high cut. So anything below the low cut is not being triggered by the kick anymore in this example, and also the same for the high cut. So everything above this frequency range, so 1.4 kilohertz for example here, is no longer being ducked by the kick. So I want the kick to act on pretty low on the sub bass, so that it kind of acts on the whole sub bass. So let's hear it before and after. So as you can hear, when the sidechain is working and when the plugin is on, you're hearing the kick attack and body way more than with it not on. So you get way more definition in the kick here. And also if I press this blue button here, I have attack and release controls. So let's hear how they work. So with the attack down, it's really not triggering the sub bass to go down at all. So a fast attack and you kind of hear that ducking way more. Now let's hear the release. Okay, so that's the kick on the sub bass, really quite commonly used by lots of producers. So now the second example, I want to use the snare drum to trigger the hi-hats, because kick and snare needs to be really prominent in the mix, and you can sometimes get some frequency clash between high elements of the snare and the hi-hat, but also around the mid-range. So let's hear how that works. So we have the Trackspacer on the hi-hat because we want the sidechain to trigger the hi-hat to duck. So as you can hear with the sidechain on, the snare just punches through way better. You've got more body, you've got more presence in the snare, and you really want to hear the snare in the whole mix, of course. So again, fast attack, fast release settings, because I really want it to respond to the next incoming snare. But yeah, let's just do a quick play around here. So yeah, when you bring the low cut down, you can really hear that initial transient of the snare coming through over the hats. So the third example I want to show is using the whole drum bus to trigger the mid-range. So you will get some kind of frequency competition between certainly the kick and the fundamental of the snare against the mid-ranges. So I find this a really useful technique to allow the whole drum bus to just cut through against the mids. I mean, I hope you can hear that on your speakers, because it really is quite a dramatic difference. So let's play around with some settings here again. So you see, when I go the whole way up on the amount, you only really get the high frequencies coming through, so everything above 1500 approximately here. So yeah, not too much on the amount, because I want some of the lower mids of the mids to come through. So let's back this off a bit. Again, relatively quick attack, relatively short, quick release. And yeah, there's 3 examples in which I use Sidechain. So you can find the link to the Trackspacer below, grab a copy through the link. And yeah, this really is quite a commonly used set of techniques from me and many other people in drum and bass. So yeah, I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you in the next video.